Welcome. This is Dennis Washburn. I'm chair of the Calabasas Planning Commission and want to welcome you all, my colleagues, my staff member friends, and anybody who's watching us on CTV.
I did.
Are we live still? Good. This is the Planning Commission meeting of May 21st and our new time slot, which is 6 p.m. And it's a Zoom teleconference, and I do need to read a little official stuff to start. This meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-29-20 regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and issues therein. The live stream of the meeting may be viewed on Calabasas City TV, Channel 3 on your Spectrum account, if that's what you have, and or online on City, it's http://calabasasgranicus.com/mediaplayer.php ? Publish ID equals 44. That's the code. In accordance with the governor's executive order, the public may participate in this meeting using the steps that you'll find if you go to our website, cityofcalabasas.com, and look at the agenda. There is data there that tells you about what kind of equipment is appropriate, what the codes are, and if you're going to join by phone, numbers are there for you to help with, including international numbers if necessary. And the meeting ID is 823-2197-6451, and password is 067309. I hope I didn't give away trade secrets. And there's instructions also on how to deal with being recognized and included in our proceedings tonight. We have a reasonable meeting agenda. I am going to call the meeting to order officially at this point and call the roll of the commission members. And if you look at the gallery view, if you're on Zoom, you can see that we have myself, Commissioner Seekand, Muller, Peter Kraut, Wendy Vosberg, Michael Harrison, and we have staff members Judy Gilley and behind the scenes, Tony Yin helping us with the hosting, and our city council, Matt Summers. Welcome to you all. It's a long time since we've actually been together other than, by teleconference in some way. And it's nice to see you all and have the public see that we're still at work, making sure that the city of Calabasas does the best we can to make our lives best. So, Judy, you want to call the, since I mentioned everybody, that's good enough for a roll call, don't you think, Matt? So we're moving on.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have an icon for an American flag, and I would invite you all to join me in a pledge of allegiance to our flag. You don't need to stand. I don't want to know if you're wearing pants or not. So we're gonna put our hands over our heart and begin our pledge of allegiance to our American flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for
which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. And back to gallery view. And I hope you've all had a chance to look at the agenda. I'm sure you have. May I have a motion to approve the agenda unless there's a need to add or change it?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Wendy, seconded by Michael. We're going to operate in this agenda. I wish I were in a restaurant. So we'll work on this approved agenda, and hearing no objections, we're moving forward. Announcements and introductions. Does any commissioner or any staff member for that matter have anything to say before we get started with the oral communications portion?
Just glad to see everybody healthy, reasonably happy, and hope all is the same with our great citizens of Calabasas.
Thank you very much. I will tell you that most of the events that we all might have hoped would happen are probably going to be canceled, certainly 4th of July. And I know that the school district's The function this Saturday or Sunday that was scheduled for the Sagebrush Cantina, that's the Education Foundation. All of these have been either canceled or postponed. Stay tuned to what may be happening there. I don't think we're going to see anything in the way of meaningful public gatherings until we get past the June timeframe. That's my guess. But you'll be notified if there's a change to that, and let's keep our fingers crossed. At this point, I'm going to move to oral communications and public comment, and it's my understanding that there is one person who wishes to speak on matters that are not on our agenda during our public comment portion. Oh, and this gives me an opportunity to say that we're going to ask folks to limit their input to 2 minutes until we can figure out how to make everything work the way we want. And I'll be generous with the time cutoff if we need to make sure that we don't cut off your ideas or your thoughts. And it'll make the meeting go a little quicker so that we can make sure that we're doing the right things here. And Judy Gilley will be helping us with timing of any folks who will be speaking. Commissioners obviously are not limited in that regard, but some of the presenters may be. At this point, is there anybody that wishes to speak at oral communications public comment? Judy, do we have anybody online?
Mr. Chair, I have 7 attendees coming in from Zoom. Perhaps if you would like to speak on a general item, please raise your hand now by pressing *9 to raise your hand.
Anybody that you can see?
Not at the moment. Let's give it just a few seconds in case someone's fumbling with their buttons or there's a delay.
Not a problem.
I see all people coming in, join the meeting through the app. So press the raise hands button if you want to speak.
I'll repeat then what I was asking. So anybody who has just now got their computer tuned in or their devices, whatever, we are at oral communications and public comment and looking for anyone who wishes to speak on items that are not on our agenda tonight. And I did indicate that we are going to start with a 2-minute as opposed to our normal 3-minute time allocation. If you need more time, we'll be gentle and generous in dealing with that, but we want to keep the meeting moving forward as best we can tonight. And has anybody identified themselves yet, Judy, as to wanting to speak?
No, I don't see any hands.
Okay, then if someone does come in and has a legitimate reason for wanting to be reheard, let's ask at the end of the meeting just to make sure that if someone wishes to speak on an item that is not on our agenda tonight, that they have an opportunity to be heard and that we get to hear what they have to say. Okay, we're moving on now to our consent items. We have 2 sets of minutes. I'll take them separately since I heard earlier that there might be some change to one of the sets. Is there anybody who would like to move the approval of the February 6th minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that was moved by John and seconded by
Me.
Wendy.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the February 6th minutes? Hearing not, then I would recommend that we approve the minutes of February 6th, and hearing no objections, we'll move on. The February 20th minutes, my understanding, we might have a need to make some additions or corrections. So anybody who wishes to make comment on the minutes? Michael?
Yes, thank you, Dennis. On page 2 in the public hearing items, in the first paragraph, which begins file number SPR, in the 4th to last line, it says the project is exempt from environmental review in accordance with all these different CEQA exemptions. The issue I have with this is that we didn't discuss this, although there was an attorney there who did, and we did receive correspondence. I would prefer if it would just say the project was found to be exempt or was determined to be exempt, something like that, because this is an absolute statement and I don't think it's true. So, and we didn't really discuss it. So I'm wondering if we could just change it to the project was found to be or something like that.
Does anybody have any objection to them making that? Matt, is there any reason that we can't make that change?
One note I would add is that the Planning Commission's decision to approve the resolution did declare that for the purposes of the city, it is exempt from CEQA. I realize that wasn't a unanimous vote, but the Planning Commission's resolution did adopt that as a position of the city, and no appeal was filed with the City Council. You may find that you wish to leave the minutes as is.
So the problem is, this says the project is exempt. It doesn't say the Planning Commission found or anything like that. And it's an absolute statement, which isn't really true. So that's
But the city's position is that it is true, although I realize that's not unanimous.
I think I can add something to this. It appears if the minutes repeat the title of the project and then gets into the meat of the meeting. So this wasn't anything any commissioner said. It was literally what was in the agenda.
Well,
I would agree with Glenn that this is a statement of the issue that we reviewed, and we did approve it 4-1. I don't think there's an edit for the minutes that is necessary here.
I would agree.
Michael, it's probably good to bring it up, but in the future, we might want to actually, on items that require commission approval, ensure that at least they're in the majority vote, that there is agreement that the statement is correct. It's worth bringing it up, but at this point, I think the minutes should stand, and you've heard from your colleagues that's the effect, and from the attorney.
all right.
I move approval of the minutes.
I'll second that.
Moved by Wendy and seconded by Peter. Is that correct? Okay. I will ask for a vote. All in favor of the approval of these minutes as they have been presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Do I need a roll call? I don't think so.
No, I mean, I approve, but just for the record, I mean, we never really discussed this at that last meeting. And I agreed with that attorney on all the exceptions not applying, except for the possible exception of the infill. But we never really discussed it. So maybe in the future, we'll discuss these things.
It's kind of a policy issue as well, Michael, so it's good to bring it up. But the fact is that, you know, we did vote to pass the measure. So
Sure.
the minutes will stand, and we're going to move on since they have been approved. I think it took a vote, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a-
you've approved them. And it's
We-
certainly reasonable to bring it up.
We did an oral versus a roll call, and I heard no objections, so I think we're okay. We're proceeding now to our public hearing items, and our first item of business is file number CUP, Conditional Use Permit, 2019-002, request for a CUP to allow on-site consumption of beer, wine, and spirits via a Type 47 license from the State Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control in conjunction with the operation of a new restaurant located at 4895 Las Virgenes Road within the Commercial Retail Zoning District, Scenic Corridor Overlay Zone, and Las Virgenes Gateway Master Plan Area. The project is exempt from environmental review, Michael, to your point, in accordance with section 15061B3 general rule exemption and section 15301E1 existing facilities of the California CEQA Guidelines. And just for clarity, it's my understanding that this is an application to find or develop a new restaurant and bar and grill essentially out of the Coco's restaurant property. And that's what we'll be hearing about tonight. If I'm incorrect, someone should tell me about that now.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, we're moving on. It's submitted by Ramon, I'm gonna say Baguio, Salsa and Beer, authentic Mexican food from Jerez, Zacatecas. And our planner, Brenda Magana, is going to take us through the presentation. And what I'll do at the end of the presentation is ask for commissioner questions or comments to clarify anything that might remain before we go to a public hearing. Or do I want to open the public hearing now, Matt?
You can take the staff report, then open the public hearing.
That's what I'll do. Okay. Brenda, take the floor. Presentation space is yours.
Okay, I need the host to disable my participant screen sharing.
And commissioners, you should all have your slide presentations that you can look on in addition to this being visible by the public.
Okay. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. I'd like to start by pointing out that the project was noticed to all property owners within 500 feet, and the notice was posted on the website and throughout the city at all required locations. Staff did receive one letter in support of the project and has been added to your packets. The project before you tonight is a request for a CUP to allow on-site consumption of beer, wine, and spirits via a Type 47 license from the ABC, in conjunction with the operation of a new restaurant, Salsa and Beer. The subject site is also located at 4895 Las Virgenes Rd, also formerly known as the Coco's Restaurant, as Commissioner Washburn pointed out. Per the ABC's records, Coco is operated with a Type 41 on-sale general ABC license for the consumption of beer and wine. Salsa and Beer intends to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits during the proposed hours of operation from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. The property is located within the Las Virgenes and 101 Freeway Scenic Corridors and the Las Virgenes Gateway Master Plan area. Currently, the existing building is vacant. The proposed tenant space improvements include interior improvements and like-for-like exterior upgrades that do not result in an expansion of the existing building or a change in the color or design of the existing building. This image shows the existing elevation of the entrance of the building. This image shows the elevation visible from the freeway on-ramp. This image shows the east side elevation of the existing building. Lastly, this shows the south side elevation of the existing building and a portion of the existing parking lot. Here you'll see the existing parking lot. The applicant has proposed to resurface and restripe as well as install new landscaping in all the landscape areas. This image shows one of the existing non-conforming pole signs, which will be removed as stated in condition number 18 of the resolution. As shown on the proposed site plan, the new restaurant will not include any outdoor seating. This image shows the proposed floor plan. The restaurant will serve 148 occupants at any given time. 43 of those seats include bar seating. This image shows the proposed elevations. The proposed elevations, as mentioned earlier, are exterior modifications that are all cosmetic upgrades and will not require a Scenic Corridor Permit. The proposed project meets all of the required findings listed in section 17.62.060 of the Calabasas Municipal Code. In conclusion, the proposed project will not alter the existing restaurant use, which is an allowed use within the commercial retail zone. The project is exempt from CEQA and meets all required findings of the conditional use permit. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2020-699 approving CUP 2019-002. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant and I are available for any questions.
If we can drop the slides now and go back to gallery view, let's see if any of the commissioners has a question or a comment at this point before I open the public hearing and hear from the applicant or the public, or both.
I'd like to just ask if you could explain why the sign is being removed. Is that a requirement of the approval, or is there another mechanism that's triggering that requirement?
So this is an existing non-conforming pole sign, and there's been an expired use, and it's been vacant for longer than the allowable time. Therefore, it needs to be removed.
And if I could just add briefly that time, commissioners, is 90 days. So had a new restaurant proposed to move in within 90 days, then it would have been a sign copy change and they wouldn't be able to keep the pole sign. Absent that, though, once a sign that is non-conforming is discontinued for more than 90 days, then as the pole sign here, it must be removed.
That's why Lovey's got to keep Red Robin sign, right?
Because it did it within the 90-day window.
I had a question, Dennis. I understand the pole sign, but I don't see or did not see anything relative to new signage. Is there not signage as part of this application? Is that coming separately, or did I miss it?
So the new signage will be submitted separately
Okay,
as a sign permit.
all right.
Probably based upon our approval or disapproval of the application. Yes, John.
I had a question on parking, Brenda. Just dangerous to give a lawyer a calculator, but it seemed to me there are two different methods to calculate the parking spots. And I think it's either 60 or 62, and you have to put in the greater number if it's, is that right?
For what exactly?
For the parking spot, the number of parking spots.
Right, we typically go for the greater number. However, this was a continuation of an existing use. So parking was determined to be okay, as is.
And do you know how many that is? I mean, are they just going to restripe the existing slots?
Correct.
And do you know how many there are?
Let me look at the plan.
I mean, if you don't, that's fine. I thought that the calculation was based on the square footage, which I guess doesn't change.
Correct.
They're not changing the footprint.
Commissioner Mueller, I can add to this. Existing building that was there that's being occupied by the same use, reoccupied by the same use, doesn't have to provide spots up to what the code would require because it hasn't expanded the size of the structure itself. Had they added on to this, then a whole new ballgame. We would have to recalculate the amount of spaces they would need to be code compliant, and they would have to stripe accordingly.
You know, this is Tom Bartlett. I'm sorry. One last thing about that, since you asked also about restriping, they will have to restripe to be able to meet ADA as they get their building permits. And so there will be some reconfiguration as necessary to accommodate that. But that would be the only real change in number and placement of the parking spaces.
And one further comment on parking, and I'll ask Ms. Magana to confirm, as I understand it, either way you count it, 59 or 62, the existing parking space count is above that at 73. So I think either way they meet the code, although it's noted they would be able to continue the existing parking count. But I'll turn to staff to confirm.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay, great. So there's 73 now. So they actually are doing about 10 or 12 more than the code would require. Good, great.
Now, I do have a question. Restriping to meet ADA requirements, will they lose some of the existing? I assume they are not going to go below the required, but are they going to lose a couple of the existing spaces because of that?
That usually happens. You usually lose a space or two.
Yeah. Okay. But that still leaves them significantly above the requirement. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Yes, Michael.
So I have a few questions. One is about the seating. You said they're not applying for outside seating, but I know the city is considering outside seating during this pandemic, and there is a temporary ABC license that you can get to allow outdoor seating and service of alcohol. And I just wanted to know if the applicant is going to be doing that, or do you know, Brenda?
The applicant hasn't stated anything to that effect because they're still waiting for CUP approval. I think that may be something that they consider, but they still have a lot of renovations to do before opening.
Okay, because I mean, I would just throw that in if they ever do need it from us. I don't know why. I mean, we could do it in advance, I would think. So it's an ABC-253 application for the coronavirus outdoor seating. The other questions I have are concerning things that are in the resolutions regarding the time of the service of the alcohol and the time of construction. First, on the time of construction, these are the sort of the normal hours that we put in, 7 to 5 Monday through Friday and 8 to 5 on Saturday. There are no residences anywhere near here that I know of, and I don't know why we have any limitation on construction. Most of it's going to be inside except for the parking lot and landscaping. I don't know why we have any limitations at all. I remember for the commons, we allowed them to work all night and with lights, but I don't know if there's a reason we have to have these hours.
Michael, I would just add that when the commons was built, we did in fact have a staff person, or basically code enforcement and compliance, paid for by the applicant, in order to accommodate that accelerated schedule that we were all hoping to accomplish. So again, that's at the end of our discussion this evening. We might want to give specific direction to the development director in order to address the issues that are raised, like you just did with these couple of items. And if there's anything else, then we can give the direction to staff, unless you tell me otherwise, Matt, to pay attention to that and to be as collaborative as possible in order to help the folks get their business going. And if we approve this project, then we'd want to make sure that the easiest and widest serving capacity of use of this space is what we accomplish here.
So thanks, Dennis. The other question is about the service of alcohol, and that's on page 6 in item 13 of the resolutions. First of all, it says beer and wine sales shall be limited. I think they meant to say beer and wine and spirits sales shall be limited to the hours of, and it's 11 to 10, Sunday through Thursday, and 11 to 11 Friday and Saturday. And again, I don't have any feeling against them serving alcohol as under their license, whatever's permitted under their ABC license. This isn't really a residential area or anything. It's right on the freeway. I mean, right on the off ramp. I wouldn't mind if they served it whenever their ABC license permits. That's just my thoughts. So those are my questions.
Well, then let's see if those are addressed during the public hearing, and we can come back to those if we don't have specific answers. Are there any other commissioners that would like to have questions raised or make comments on the specifics of either the staff report or the resolution so far? Okay, Matt, then I'm going to open the public hearing.
Yes.
And Brenda, I'm going to rely on you to tell us who is present, either from the applicant or from the public, along with Judy's help, to make sure that we can acknowledge those folks who have something to say. And I don't have speaker cards, which I would normally call upon in the order that they were presented. So I'm going to count on you to tell me if there is someone from the applicant here to speak. If you would give us that name and introduce the person, and we'll speak. We'll hear from them. And again, I'm going to suggest that we start with 2 minutes for any speaker. And if we need to be a little more generous, we will do so that we can coordinate the timing, because Judy's running the clock on speakers.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. From the applicant team, I know that Ramon Baguio is here. And Judy, if you want to go ahead and let him in.
Of course. Ramon Baguio, I'm going to allow you to speak. If you can press *6 to unmute yourself, then you will be able to speak, and I will have 2 minutes for you.
And my quick question is, will we see the speakers' images on our screens?
I believe not.
Okay. Well, we're paying attention, so.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, my name is Ramon Baguio. I'm the designer and agent for the applicant.
Ramon, pardon my disruption. Would you give us your full name and your city of residence for the record?
Sure. Ramon Gilbert Baguio, Baguio. I reside at 4273 Canoga Avenue in Woodland Hills, California, 91364.
So that's enough. We don't need to have anybody tracing you home. It's just city residence is fine. So you're in the city of Los Angeles in the Canoga Park neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You have the microphone, and your time starts now. But like I
Okay.
said, we're okay on the timing.
First, thank you very much for allowing us to meet on Zoom. This is my first public hearing, so this is very interesting. I wanted to make sure it's clear that the applicant, my applicant, the business owner already runs 2 of these restaurants. One in North Hollywood, 11669 Sherman Way. The other one in Van Nuys at 6740 White Oak. He's run them successfully up until March 13th when he had to close everything down. And he's never had any issues with ABC or those particular cities. If I could pick a place in Calabasas so it would be closest in feeling or an atmosphere, that would probably be Sagebrush. But Sagebrush is mostly outdoor seating, and there won't be any outdoor seating provided here for this particular site. It's mostly his restaurants on Balboa and White Oak are most certainly family-style restaurants, neighborhood facilities. This is not a big box restaurant, which I find appealing about this. This is someone that's been doing restaurant, has been in the restaurant business almost all his life. And that's about it. I think it's a pretty straightforward request that we have to be able to serve. He already serves alcohol at both his other sites, and as I said, he's had no issues there. And I think he would do very well here. It's been a building that's been vacant for quite a while and in disrepair. And he is prepared and ready to make the landscaping improvements and bring the building back up to where it was before. And he does accept the fact that he will have to take down the pole sign. And of course, as Mr. Harrison pointed out, he would definitely be considering how to
That is time.
seat outside during the virus.
You can finish your remarks, and in fact, I'm going to ask you to address whether any of the issues raised by the commissioners has an answer that you would like to provide.
Well, first off, we understand about the sign. He doesn't feel the need to even keep the sign, so the pole sign is fine, that it has to be removed. The seating outside, yes, he will definitely consider doing that if and when some kind of opening procedures are provided by the state and the county. But that's nothing that he's decided now. As Brenda said, there's quite a bit to do inside. There's going to be a full interior renovation, exterior renovation. There's quite a bit of landscaping to do. We have to repave, we have to repair the parking lot and the landscaping. So probably I'm estimating, but hopefully by the time he does get everything done, all of the restrictions of COVID will have been lifted. I also wanted to point out that the parking plan that was provided, that we put into the plans, aside from ADA, and I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Brenda, I think that we'll be required to do just one more ADA parking. Is it 1 per 20 in the city of Calabasas? 1 per 20 parking spaces? That was a question, Brenda.
Tom, can you confirm that? ADA is typically something that building and safety.
Yeah, building and safety applies that standard, and I don't have the building code in front of me, so I don't have the answer right now.
Okay.
That sounds about right, but we saw the parking plan that was put in for the project, and it does show more accessible spaces than what exists currently, but it's not going to appreciably diminish the total parking, as is already discussed. So we're not worried about it.
I can't remember if it's 1 per 20 or 1 per 25. In any case, we're prepared. The plan shows the parking spaces as current current size according to the municipal code now.
Thank you for that. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you very much, Brenda, for all your help with this project.
I'm going to leave, obviously, the public hearing is open, and do we have?
Could I ask a question, Dennis?
Oh, yes, please do.
I forgot I was on mute, sorry. I just had a question on the hours of alcohol service, and the hours stated here, are those the operating hours or just the hours of that you are being asked to limit your sales of beer, wine, and liquor to? So are these the complete full hours of operation for the restaurant? 11 to 10 Sunday through Thursday and 11 to 11 Friday and Saturday?
I can answer it. Yes, that's correct.
That's what's being proposed for the operation of the restaurant?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Did Ramon drop off of the screen?
Apparently so, but that's fine. I mean, as long as.
Okay. Any other questions that anyone has? Comments? Okay. Brenda, do we have other speakers that wish to speak?
I had one question.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, John.
And I don't know if we need to bring back Ramon or somebody else can address this. Does the applicant have any objection to the construction activity hours that are set forth in condition 11? That Commissioner Harrison, I think, raised a good point, but if the applicant doesn't have any issue with those, there may not be anything to talk about.
The applicant has not brought any of that up.
All right.
I can add to the discussion though, because the building official does have the authority to allow people to construct outside those hours. In fact, that's what was done for the commons when they developed the commons. So if Ramon would like to construct outside the hours, he just has to come to City Hall and ask us.
As long as it conforms to our current code and practice, then we're in good shape.
That's correct. If we're not disturbing anyone by doing that, then we can authorize that.
Okay.
Well, then we'll have to deal with the language of condition 11 because it doesn't say that.
We probably need a sentence in there that says, the building official, can adjust the hours according to city code and practice.
I believe it's in the building code, but okay, we can do that.
We can always amend the language in condition 11, but condition 11 does exist against the building code. So we could always, but perhaps to ensure clarity, let's add the reference there.
I think a sentence in the resolution would be sufficient to the point that you've all made. Anything else from any of the commissioners regarding this? Okay, then we don't need to bring Ramon back, but Brenda, are there other speakers who wish to comment on this, either from the public or from the applicant staff?
Mr. Chair, I have Ramon again raising his hand.
Okay. Can we put him back on the mic?
Ramon, *6 to unmute, please.
Yes, I have a question about the hours for the weekend. I think we said 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday, Saturday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'd like to request if it's possible to extend it to one more hour on Friday night and Saturday night.
Well, before we do that, let me just bring back the subject Michael raised, which was, whatever the ABC permit, not ABC, but whatever, the ruling authority in the state is, if they allow, a range of hours, if the permit is granted, then they should be able to operate to the hours of their license.
I believe the ABC hours limit is until 2 a.m. on any night, but I'll look to staff to confirm that.
This is Tom again. I understand the same. And at midnight hours, clearly earlier than that, the commission through the CUP process has the authority to establish earlier hours. That's the whole point. So you can set it at 12 midnight, and I would recommend the commission be specific and set it at that if that's the commission's desire, rather than to leave it as something to adjust from time to time.
Well, Tom, Michael brought up the point though, is that in the license, if the state allows for hours that are, in this particular instance, essentially inoffensive, why can't we just leave it that he needs to conform to the conditions of his license?
That would be fine. In that case, I would suggest we find out if it for sure is 2 a.m. and then that will be the number in the resolution.
Well, I'm not even sure that it's, are you saying, yeah, Matt, why don't you help me with this? Because
the one thing to consider is that the state has had a number of proposals over the last 2 or 3 years to extend the statewide limit from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. So if we had a resolution that said it simply is the state's limits as the state sets them, then that might, what we're thinking of as a 2 a.m. limit might get extended without our control to 4. If the CUP is specific as to an hour number, whether 11 or midnight or 2, then if the state changes its rules, the CUP would still control.
and I would guess
In the
that,
Middle East, none of those bills have passed yet, but
right.
the relevant legislators are going to keep trying.
There's
We
been
may not
quite a
want
bit of
to give up that
controversy on that.
control.
And if we set a time, they can always come back and ask for a change in the conditions, right?
Correct.
I would be willing to support the applicant's request for bumping it to midnight. That seems reasonable to me.
On Friday and Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree, and I would just ask staff, do we have an idea of what other restaurants in Calabasas serve alcohol until what hours?
I'll defer back to staff on that one. I believe a number of them are at least midnight, if not later.
This Tom again. I do know that 6 over in Old Town is open until a pretty late hour, I believe, maybe till midnight. The Tuscanova, I think on the weekends is open till something like 11 or midnight. So it's not something that's not been done before. And then Salt, before they went out of business, I think we're open until something like that as well.
Mark, did you have anything else?
No.
Okay, then, if we proceed, then why don't we just set, the requested and the suggested time of midnight on Friday and Saturday, and add that to the resolution accordingly, if in fact that's what the commissioners would like to see.
Mr. Chair, the applicant has his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Baguio?
My question was already answered, sir. It's no longer applicable, but we would love to have it be to midnight on Friday and Saturday.
All right. Michael, anything else?
Yeah, what about the other days? Do they still only want it till, what was it, 10? Or do they want that to 11?
I'm trying not to push my luck. I would love to have that from 11 to 11 too.
Sure, I mean, I don't, again.
No,
I don't
just
live-
11 to 11, not 11 to midnight on the non-weekend days.
Okay,
So 11 to 11, Sunday through Thursday, Friday and Saturday to midnight. Because we are hoping that there's pent up demand after this whole COVID thing, hopefully.
And what is the, Mr. Baguio, what is the applicant's position with regard to construction hours?
We're fine with the current code on hours of construction.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Baguio while we have him back up at the podium? Okay, then I'll go back to Brenda and ask, do we have anybody else who wishes to comment on this from the public?
Judy, do we have anyone else?
I see the same 7 people. If perhaps if you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand now so that I can get you on. If you're waiting for another item, you just stay put. And it doesn't look like we have any other speakers for this item, Mr. Chair.
Okay. In which case, commissioners, unless you have additional questions or whatever, I'm going to close the public hearing and see if there is anyone who would like to make a motion.
Before we make a motion, I'd like to suggest something on the construction activities.
Okay,
I know the applicant said he's all right with it, but Michael Harrison pointed out a very good point, which is that this site is far removed from any residence. It's adjacent to the freeway and an automotive shop. And I think this is a perfect place where construction hours should be as free as practical. We have these hours in our municipal code, and in order to leave the building official the right to change those hours without having to modify a CUP, we could just strike the word hours of construction activity shall be limited to all the way down to the word Saturday, keep the rest of it, and then the municipal code still covers that until the building official changes it. Is that an option?
Yes, you could think that's good.
I heard yes from Matt, and I heard a staff member comment. Who's, is that Tom or is that Glenn?
I believe it must have been Glenn because I was muted, but this is Tom, and it would help me because I'm doing the minutes behind the scenes to know who suggested what exactly there. I know that it was Vice Chair Kraut suggesting deletion of language, and where exactly was that? And I'll make a note in the minutes.
Okay, but for the record, it was Commissioner Harrison's idea. I don't want to take credit for this. I'm just providing a solution. I was suggesting that we delete the words hours of construction all the way down to the word Saturday in item 11 and leave the rest of the paragraph as is.
It's on page 6, Tom, of
found
the
Yeah,
item 11.
got it. Thank you.
And is there any concern or question from any of the other commissioners? Then why don't we make that the order of the day? Let's modify the resolution accordingly. Any other comments on the resolution, or is someone at this point ready to make a motion?
Well,
One more discussion. We have to modify the hours of operation if we choose to do so.
yeah. I mean, I would propose that we have a Friday and Saturday from 11 till midnight, and Monday through Thursday, 11 to 11 p.m.
Okay.
So that's dealt with the two open issues essentially.
All right,
Okay,
I'll
next.
move adoption of resolution number 2020-699, approving file number CUP 2019-002 as amended.
But Wendy,
With
one
regard, yeah,
nit that Michael correctly pointed out on condition 13, it's beer, wine, and spirit sales.
right, I would,
Yeah,
with the proposed amendments to paragraph, to condition number 11, removing the language starting with hours and finishing with Saturday, and amending condition 13 to add the word and the words and spirits, and changing the hours as Commissioner Mueller just stated. So we're talking from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 11 a.m. to midnight on Friday and Saturday.
Are there any other, is there further discussion on this, and is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So moved by Wendy, second by Michael, and I hear no further discussion. Is that correct? Okay, all in favor? Actually, let's do a roll call vote on this. Judy, would you call the commissioner's roll call just to make sure that we have this squared away?
Of course, Commissioner Seekand,
I think I'm the alternate now, so I
correct.
believe I'm voting.
oh, so call the others?
Yeah,
Yes, please.
as alternate commissioner, Commissioner Seekin does not vote, but does participate in discussion while with all five of the commissioners are present.
Okay, Commissioner Mueller,
Aye.
Commissioner Kraut,
Aye.
Commissioner Fosberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison.
Aye.
And Commissioner Washburn says aye as well.
Oh, so sorry.
Not a problem. All right, the resolution is passed. And actually, I forgot to close the public hearing, Matt, so.
I thought we took that step.
I may have. I remember opening it. I can't remember whether I actually verbalized the closing.
I believe you closed it.
Yeah, I think we did. So we're good there.
As long as the minutes reflect the appropriate action there, they'll be fine. Okay, our next item is moving on to item number, let me get to back to my agenda. I've got a stack of paper here. It's item number 3, which is, are you able to hear me, everybody? Okay. File number APR 2020-001 and Scenic Corridor Permit 2020-001, request for an administrative plan review and a Scenic Corridor Permit as in order to construct a 129 square foot exterior elevator and machine room at an existing commercial shopping center located at 4937 Las Virgenes Rd, and within the commercial retail zoning district, Scenic Corridor Overlay Zone, and the Las Virgenes Gateway Master Plan. That's why it's a public hearing. The project is exempt from environmental review in accordance with sections as they're shown on the agenda. And the application was submitted by Alex, I believe it's Vassal of Barrick Architects, and Jacqueline Rackerby is going to take us through the presentation of the application.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I could interrupt for a quick moment here. I am not involved in this project, but Art Bannock and Alex Vassal have been clients of mine for a long time. So in the interest of transparency, I'm going to be recusing myself from this vote.
Okay. And we have obviously
I'll join you when it's over.
We have an opportunity for Mark Secan now to participate as a voting member. So we'll proceed accordingly. Yes, Peter, go ahead.
I think he was saying goodbye.
Yeah, that was Peter waving,
okay.
signing off for now. He will rejoin the commission at the conclusion of this item.
That'll be fine. I saw hands up. I thought someone wanted to speak. So that was just a bye-bye. He'll be back. All right. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Give me one moment to make sure I can.
And you all have another slide presentation hard copy delivered to your home. So if you can't see anything on the screen, you'll know what's going on.
All right. Can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and start. Good evening, commissioners. I'd like to start out by noting that this project was noticed to all property owners within 500 feet of the project site. The notice was posted on the city's website as well as throughout the city at Gelson's and City Hall, as the other 3 typical posting locations are not accessible at this time, and staff has not received any public correspondence in regards to the project. Before you tonight is a request for an administrative plan review and a Scenic Corridor Permit to construct a 129 square foot exterior elevator and machine room at an existing commercial center located at 4937 Las Virgenes Road within the commercial retail zoning district, Scenic Corridor Overlay Zone, and Las Virgenes Gateway Master Plan. Okay. So here you'll see the project location. The site is located off of Las Virgenes Road and is adjacent to the 101 freeway. The site is located within the commercial retail zoning district and is within the Scenic Corridor Overlay Zone due to its proximity to the 101 freeway and Las Virgenes Road, which are both designated scenic corridors. And the site is located within the highway triangle area that is identified within the Las Virgenes Gateway Master Plan. The site is surrounded by other properties zoned commercial retail, including a drive-through restaurant to the north, automotive services to the south, and a hotel currently under construction to the east. The project site, which is highlighted in yellow here, is located within an existing commercial center comprised of 2 irregularly shaped lots, Parcel A and Parcel B. Parcel A is the site of the proposed elevator, while Parcel B is the site of the 2-story building that the proposed elevator will be serving. Here you can see photographs of the site. The photo in the top left corner is the front of the buildings taken from the parking lot and facing west. The bottom left photograph is the rear of the buildings as seen from the 101 freeway. And the photo on the right is the view of the space in between the two buildings and is the site of the proposed elevator. So the proposal before you includes the construction of a 129 square foot exterior elevator and machine room at an existing commercial center. The project involves a request for an administrative plan review permit for adding on to an existing commercial building, as well as a Scenic Corridor Permit because the project is located within the Scenic Corridor Overlay Zone. The project also involves a request for a reasonable accommodation from the city's pervious surface requirement. The Calabasas Municipal Code Section 17.62.050 requires this project to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. So here you'll see the proposed site plan. This shows the two parcels that the center is comprised of. You can also see a third parcel to the north at the top of the screen. This is the site of the Taco Bell drive-thru restaurant, which is accessed through these two lots. However, it is separate from the commercial shopping center and it is not associated with a proposed project. So the project site is just parcels A and B as shown in the site plan. And highlighted in yellow here is the site of the proposed new elevator and machine room, which is in an existing landscaped area between the two buildings. The construction will result in the loss of 129 square feet of pervious surface, which does slightly reduce the center's pervious surface percentage from 10.4% to 10.1%, which is a non-conforming situation because it is below the 22% minimum required in the CR zoning district. Because of this, a reasonable accommodation is being sought from the city's pervious surface requirement. I'll get into a little bit more detail on that in the next few slides. Also to note, the pervious area between these two buildings is currently landscaped with a pepper tree, which is to be removed, and no oak trees will be impacted by the proposed project. Here you'll see the proposed south elevation. The proposed new elevator is highlighted in yellow, as is the new machine room, and as you can see, it's situated between the two existing buildings. Here we have our proposed courtyard elevations. These are the elevations of the site as viewed from in between the two buildings. So first we have the west courtyard elevation, which is the site as viewed from the location of the two-story building looking at the one-story building. And we have our east courtyard elevation, which is as viewed from the one-story building looking at the two-story building. And we have our north courtyard elevation, which looks at the space between the two buildings as viewed from the north. The project site is located within the Las Virgenes Gateway Master Plan area, and the site was developed in 1989 prior to the implementation of the master plan. Thus, it does not reflect the Monterey design style of the master plan. Although the master plan does state that additions and remodels shall take care to incorporate the entire building into the redesign effort, the proposed project is not a true addition or remodel because of the fact that the scope of this project is limited to just providing ADA access to the second floor. Therefore, a complete redesign of the center to match the Monterey architectural style of the master plan is not warranted for the current project. The proposed project is designed to blend in with the existing buildings as well as the surrounding area and is consistent with the Scenic Corridor Design Guidelines. The ARP reviewed the proposed project on February 28, 2020, and they appreciated the consistency of the proposed elevator's design with that of the existing buildings, particularly in regards to the colors, materials, and the architectural style. The ARP recommended approval of the project to the Planning Commission. So the applicant has prepared views of the project from various vantage points around the site. The boxes that are outlined in red are the project site as viewed from the Scenic Corridor. Boxes 2 and 3 are viewed from the 101 freeway, and then boxes 5 and 6 over here are as viewed from Las Virgenes Rd. As you can see in boxes 2 and 3 as viewed from the 101 freeway, the proposed elevator is not visible as it is screened by the existing two-story buildings. And in boxes 5 and 6, while the proposed elevator will be visible from Las Virgenes Rd, it is sited between the two existing buildings as to minimize the impact to views from the Scenic Corridor to the maximum extent feasible. The other views that are not outlined in red are as seen from elsewhere within the surrounding areas. Here we have views of the surrounding properties. This top photograph here is the adjacent property to the north, which is the site of the Taco Bell restaurant. The bottom left picture is the gas station and other automotive service uses to the south. And then we have the adjacent property to the east, which is the site of the proposed Rondell Hotel, which is currently under construction. And again, the proposed elevator is not changing the use of the subject site. The purpose of the project is just to provide ADA access to the second floor. Therefore, the proposed project is compatible with these surrounding land uses. As mentioned previously, the project does involve a request for reasonable accommodation from the city's pervious surface requirement. Section 17.38.010 of the Calabasas Municipal Code states that it is the policy of the city to provide disabled persons reasonable accommodations as necessary to ensure equal access to places of business. The proposed project will reduce the center's pervious surface percentage from 10.4 to 10.1, which is below the minimum 22% required for the CR zoning district. However, the applicant is seeking a reasonable accommodation on behalf of all disabled patrons and employees of the center from the city's pervious surface requirement due to the fact that the purpose of the project is to facilitate ADA upgrades. This is in keeping, again, with section 17.38.010 referenced above, as the purpose of the project is to ensure equal access to places of business. Currently, the second floor is occupied by a medical office, a dental office, a tanning salon, and an animal clinic, and access to the second floor is only provided by 2 staircases at either end of the building. Currently, there is no way for disabled individuals, individuals with strollers, or any other person with mobility challenges to access the businesses on the second floor, both patrons and employees. Granting the request will allow for an accommodation from the application of the city's pervious surface requirement in order to ensure equal opportunity of both disabled and abled individuals to access these businesses. Moving on to the findings. For an administrative plan review permit, the proposed site development is compatible in design, appearance, and scale with the existing uses, development, structures, and landscaping for the surrounding area, and the proposed project complies with the general plan and all applicable specific plans. For the findings for Scenic Corridor Permit, the proposed project complies with the Scenic Corridor Development Guidelines and incorporates design measures to ensure maximum compatibility with the Scenic Corridor. And in regards to the reasonable accommodation, the reasonable accommodation is requested on behalf of disabled patrons and employees of the commercial center for the purpose of providing ADA access to the second floor. The requested accommodation is necessary in order to provide individuals with the equal opportunity to access the second floor businesses. So with that, staff concludes that the proposed elevator will not alter the existing commercial use of the subject site, which is an allowed use in the CR zoning district. The proposed project meets all required development standards with the exception of the pervious surface requirement for which a reasonable accommodation is being requested. The proposed addition is compatible in design, appearance, and scale with the surrounding uses, and the ARP did recommend approval of the proposed project. Additionally, the project is exempt from CEQA review, and the proposed project meets all required findings for an admin plan review, scenic corridor permit, and a reasonable accommodation. With that, staff recommends that the Commission adopt resolution number 2020-707, approving file numbers APR-2020-001 and SCP-2020-001. However, staff is recommending one revision to the conditions of approval that are contained within attachment A, specifically conditions number 8 and 9, which begin on page 12. Based on a concern raised by the applicant earlier today regarding their liability in terms of potential existing non-conforming equipment or lighting. Based on these concerns, staff is recommending that conditions number 8 and 9 be revised to specify that condition number 8 applies to any new ground and roof mounted equipment, and that condition number 9 applies to any new exterior lights. Thank you, and I am available for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but if we want to revisit any slides, I can go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint again.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Any questions or comments before I open the public hearing? Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Yes, I had a question. I guess this is a voluntary improvement, but I know other jurisdictions, I can't remember ours, that there's an amount of improvement, kind of dollar value sometimes, that you can try to do to a building before which it drives a requirement for an ADA accessibility, such as an elevator. Is that true?
To my knowledge, it's not driven by a dollar amount. There might be something on the building and safety side that I'm not aware of.
Well,
Matt,
I believe in this case, the primary component of the project is to install the ADA access.
No, that's not I realize that's this project and it's voluntary. I'm just trying to remember at what point in a building remodel. So let's say this wasn't the project and instead they were refurbishing, enhancing the building. Isn't there a dollar value of that permit that they'd be requesting that would make this a required feature, not just a voluntary feature?
On that one, I'll defer back to the building department. I believe that there is a trigger, but I'm not sure if it's a dollar value under Calabasas code or if it's a tested based on the character of the building changes. If you're, for example, just adjusting the first floor, you may not have to put in an elevator to the second floor.
I see. All right. Okay. It was mostly a curiosity, but the confirmation I wanted you given that this is a voluntary improvement, not triggered by any requirement that's already on the books for this building. They have just wanting to do this for their tenants.
That's correct.
Okay.
I would just add to your question or comment, Mark, that my recollection in the presentation is that this building or complex was actually created in 1989, 2 years before we were a city. So there were a lot of things that LA County allowed here that should probably have been looked at an awful lot more closely, and that the operator at this point is looking to bring it up to basically, humane standards, and ADA compliance is fixing an issue that probably shouldn't have happened in the first place. There should have been an elevator there to begin with, but that's another whole story. And we've been working on these things for the past 30 years to try to get them cleaned up. And it's nice that this is happening at this point and is being requested by the applicant. Yes, John.
Yes, I just want to make sure I understand the reason for the loss of the pervious surface. Is that the elimination of the landscape pepper tree area?
Yes, so within that landscaped area between the two buildings, there's 129 square feet of that's being removed for the elevator and machine room right next to each other.
And was there any discussion with the applicant about increasing the size of other planting or landscaping?
There was. I can let the applicant talk about that a little bit as well, but since this site is occupied by, so much of it is taken up by parking, and where there's not parking spaces, there is, as I mentioned earlier, access to get to the Taco Bell site through this site. So in one end of the drive-through, out the other, there's not a lot of good locations to install more pervious surface, but I can also let the applicant talk more about their considerations in that.
Thank you.
Yes, Michael.
So two things. One, the same issue with the construction hours, which we can, I guess, address later. This is in a location where there are no homes around there, and so maybe we can make the same adjustment that we did in the previous one. But the second point is about what Commissioner Mueller was bringing up about the pervious surface. This has less than half of our pervious surface requirement. And I'm wondering if they explored other ways of reducing the runoff, because that's what this pervious surface was originally about, not about mansionization. It was about the runoff that's spoiling the ocean, basically, or Malibu Lagoon. And so, I mean, there's so many other ways to at least limit a little bit of the runoff, like a sump or a swale or a French drain or a dry well or a cistern. And I don't know if staff or the applicant looked at any other means of reducing the runoff. Did they?
I can let the applicant talk about some of the choices that they looked at and why they decided to come forward with this final design for the project.
Okay, all right. I mean, some of those things are not expensive, so, and yet they would
Are
probably.
there other, thank you, Michael, for that. Are there other issues that the commissioners would like to have answers to when I open the public hearing? Then we'll come back to questions, and if we're not satisfied to proceed, we can continue the discussion. Do we have, other than the applicant, do we have any other speakers that want to speak in this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe I have Art Bannock. He is the applicant here, and he has his hand raised.
And are there any other members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? I'm trying to budget my time. Nothing there?
No.
And I know that you mentioned a couple of times that there are cards or there are participants from the public who are watching this, and no one's asking to speak on this matter at this point? Correct. I don't see anybody else except for the applicant now. Okay. Well, then if anybody who is watching does want to speak, then please let Judy know that you wish to. Otherwise, Jacqueline, would you introduce our applicant, and I will ask him to give his name and or the person's name anyway, and city of residence for the record. Thank you. Oh, and I'm opening the public hearing. Thank you, Matt, for a nod.
Sure, I believe he needs to be unmuted. Okay, there we go.
Hi, my name is Art Bannock. I'm the architect for this project and the applicant, and I reside in San Fernando Valley. Thank you, Jacqueline, for the presentation. You got all the high points, and I don't have much to add, and I'd like to address some of the questions from the commissioners. As far as the location of this elevator and mechanical shaft, it's located where it is primarily because of the access to the second floor, as far as getting a reasonable access on the second floor to that through the bridge, through the elevator. As far as the location in an impervious area, we looked at various ways that we could mitigate the 129 square feet. But as Jacqueline had mentioned, there are very few areas around there that we're able to convert to a pervious area for the 129 square feet that we are taking. There is a large landscaped area that we're setting this elevator in, and we're maintaining primarily the majority of that landscaped area where the pepper tree is being taken out. So it's 129 square feet, and looking at all the areas as far as parking, walkways, access to other areas of the center, we could not find another place to add. Now, one of the things that has been already added is part of the improvements along the way were underneath those stairways that go to the second floor. Those were originally paved, and the owner on his own added that square footage into grass area. So from the original layout of this building, there's actually an additional, I would say 200 to 250 square feet of pervious area underneath those stairways. The reason, again, for the location has to do with the mitigation for the Scenic Corridor and the Las Virgenes Gateway. We felt that it was the least impact on the whole project.
It's 2 minutes.
Open for any questions that you may have.
Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners? Yes, Michael.
So, Mr. Bannock, did you look at adding anything to reduce the runoff, such as a sump or a swale or a French drain, a dry well, a cistern, rain barrels, anything?
We would be willing to add rain barrels, but what happens is it'll hold the rain water until it's pumped for more irrigation. We could add some rain barrels in that courtyard area.
That would be great.
Sure.
That might be good mitigation. In fact, I would just add that the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District has had in the past and may yet have 80-gallon rain barrels that you literally put next to the downspouts coming off of the drainage of the rooftops of the various structures that we have. I have 2 of them at my house, and they do actually help, and they drain easily, and they provide you with irrigation water at a later time when otherwise you'd be drawing on the resources of the water district to try to deal with your lawn or whatever.
I don't know if you can still hear me.
I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Mr. Bannock, we can hear you.
So what we can do is we can add those rain barrels if you want to proceed with this to mitigate the square footage that we're losing with the project.
That would be great.
I have a question in that same regard then. This is Dennis Washburn. Did I hear you mention that there is grass or sod or lawn in those areas?
There's sod underneath the stairways.
Right. Here's a suggestion. There are plantings that you can replace the sod with that would reduce your water consumption and would basically help mitigate any, I guess, excess of drainage. An example is Diamondia, which is a pretty little plant that requires very little water once it gets established, and you can walk on it, and it's got nice little flowers. I have it in my front yard, and it's saved water and resources, and it looks nice. And you might want to take a look at that.
Could I comment on that?
Say it again.
I'd like to comment on that.
Oh, please do.
Underneath the stairways, I agree with your suggestion. The one thing that we find is that there are actually three veterinarians in the area, and people are using those areas under the stairs for the dogs once they come out of their car before they go in.
I hope they pick up their dogs' droppings, with the bags that the city of Calabasas provides in so many different areas in our community.
And this owner does provide those at the site.
Well, these are nuances. Are there any other significant issues that we need to cover here? John, you had your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Bannock, I noticed in the architectural review panel's recommendation, and by the way, I think this is great what you're doing, and I really appreciate your willingness to do the rain barrel idea. I did notice it says the panel expressed an opinion to the applicant that the center could benefit from a fresh color scheme in the near future. Now, that's not something I would propose as a condition here, but I'm curious whether or not you've spoken with the owner about, I take it that means a paint job or a facelift or something.
Correct. And that was a discussion that the owners and I had prior to the meeting with the architectural review board. And he's open to that completely, but he's not ready to do it right now. He would have to come back and with a color scheme and everything, get the approval as we normally would.
So that's still an idea that you're seriously considering.
It is.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Any other item or comments that you, Mr. Bannock, that you need to make or would like to?
I don't think so. I felt that the presentation covered our points.
Okay. And are there any questions of the commissioners that I need to leave the public hearing open for? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you very much, Mr. Bannock, for your comments and staff for your presentation. I have a quick question on this and our previous item, and I forgot to ask if there has been any correspondence or email on either of these topics. I do remember seeing correspondence from at least one of our community members on the previous project.
We didn't receive any public correspondence for this project.
There's none?
None.
Okay, but I know that in the previous project, I'm just acknowledging one of our citizens for having encouraged us to approve the project. And it is in the
we
file.
got a second. Actually, we got a second correspondence this afternoon on that one. But I don't.
Was there any opposition at all, Michael?
No. They were in favor of.
Yeah, I thought. So
restaurant.
I just want to make sure that, given our current internet circumstances. I just wanted to acknowledge that we had received the correspondence. The commissioners did see it and have taken it into account. So anyone is always welcome to submit comments, and we encourage your participation, even though it's going to be probably a little revisionist in the fact that we're having to deal with all of these internet connections and all the protocols that we have to go through here. But thank you all for your comments and questions and whatever. If there's nothing else from the commissioners, I'm closing the public hearing. And is there anyone who wishes to make a motion?
Well, I'll try to make a motion to approve this. This is PC Resolution 2020-701 with a file number, with a Scenic Corridor Permit 2020-001. With the changes that we have discussed, which are, let me go through them.
Hours of construction?
Hours of construction, just like the last one. The changes that the staff made in, suggested making in items 8 and 9 on page 12. And I think that's it, although I don't know if we need to put in the resolution anything about the rain barrels.
I would recommend, because we don't yet have any kind of specificity that we could enforce as a condition, I'd recommend leaving that as it is now and not have it added to the resolution. The applicant's asserted he'll do it. We
Okay.
expect that he will. And it's not of great concern for a pure enforcement perspective.
Okay.
And I would just add in that regard, Michael, that you know, my reference to the water district, just down the street, I'm sure they have rain barrels that would be either free or extremely reasonable, so that you know, we're being collaborative as well. Yes, John.
I just want to make it clear on conditions 8 and 9. It's just inserting the word new after the word all. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Michael, that's okay with you in the motion?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
And the other one was also new in number 9.
got it.
New exterior lights.
Anything else?
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Harrison and second by Commissioner Fosberg. And hearing no further discussion, that's a question. Then I'll call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And just for the record, if you call the roll for us, Jacqueline, maybe just read the commissioners' names and let them respond.
Sure. Commissioner Mueller?
Aye.
What are the others? Commissioner Harrison?
Aye, and thank you for doing this.
Welcome. Commissioner Fosberg?
Aye.
And Commissioner Seekand?
Aye.
And no Commissioner Kraut this time, and Chair Washburn?
Yeah, aye.
Right, thank you.
Motion carries and the resolution is passed. And thank you all for your discussion on this. And thank you, staff, for the presentation and working under these unusual circumstances with reasonability. It's a good thing. Yeah, you're getting applause from John. I saw that. Nicely done. And Matt, I did close the public hearing this time, yes? Okay. And I did double check on the correspondence just to make sure folks knew that they were being heard. Moving on now, we do have an item 4, which is a director's report. I don't know if that's going to be given by Glenn or by Tom Bartlett. And welcome back, Commissioner Kraut.
Thank you.
I enjoyed seeing your high school annual picture instead of the chambered Nautilus, although that's a nice logo you use as well. Is there anything from the staff in the way of a director's report at this point?
Yes, Chair Washburn and members of the commission, this is Tom Bartlett again. I am going to do my best to try to get you that report. It's a short one. Just looking at for your next meeting, and I got to turn on a light so I can read it.
Okay.
That meeting is scheduled for June 4th. Regular time is, see if everybody remembers, 6 o'clock. And That's discussion of ridge lines and also story pole discussion.
Oh, Tom, before you leave that subject, the reason that we're calling our meetings at 6 is because of our convenience, but the ordinance requires that we meet at 7 for a regular meeting and 6 or whatever for a, yes, Matt, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt there. The city council at their, I believe it's the next meeting, will be considering and approving, or no, I'm sorry, they already approved it at the May 18th meeting. City council approved the resolution flipping it, allowing the regular meetings to be at 6.
Okay, so we don't have to call it a special meeting anymore.
Correct. So the switch to 6 o'clock has been approved.
Right.
That was the reason I did my impromptu quiz just now. See if
Okay, anything else, Tom?
No, that was all.
Okay. Any reports from the commissioners themselves or announcements that you need to make? So our next meeting is June 4th at 6 o'clock, and it will be, as far as I can determine, again, via Zoom. And this, from my point of view, worked quite nicely. And thank you all for being tolerant of the conditions and participating as thoroughly as you have. And I hope you have a nice Memorial Day weekend, and the same to anyone who might be watching us on television. Enjoy. And I mean, it's a tough time. We certainly want to remember those who have served and have fallen, or who need to be remembered, whether they're family members or military or first responders. And I mean, it's quite a scope of folks that we need to appreciate over Memorial Day weekend. So I hope that you take that moment of peace and give yourself that permission to be confident that we're doing the right things, and we're remembering those who have helped us get this far. So if there's nothing further, and Matt, there's nothing else we need to deal with, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and thank you all for participating, and thank you again, staff.